What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So we've talked quite a bit about the working relationship between Microsoft and Nintendo, which is mostly Microsoft taking their games and putting it on Nintendo's hardware and then just selling a ton of copies of those games. It seems to work for them pretty well. But after seeing some very weird listings pop up on Nintendo's website the other day, everyone started speculating about Nintendo 64 games coming to the Switch or even Rare Replay, so much so that Nintendo even had to respond. So we'll go over all of that here today. Also, we're going to talk about a patent that's several years old for Microsoft, but they seem to keep updating it, and it appears to show their own version of the adaptive triggers out of the PlayStation 5 DualSense controller before an Xbox controller. Oh, and Capcom, they announced their own plug-and-play system, and it's pretty weird. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton, and if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're going to start today with Linux and the PlayStation 5 DualSense controller, as Sony has now published an official driver so that you can use your DualSense controller in games if you're using Linux, which is good to see. We had this, I believe, for the DualShock 4. It appears it's getting an updated driver now for the DualSense controller, but unfortunately, everything seems to be supported with the controller except for like the two most interesting parts about the DualSense controller, that being the haptic feedback and then of course those adaptive triggers. They say these features require a large amount of data and complex data structures. It is not clear how to expose these, and it is a shame because the one thing I've noticed online is we've had some really cool examples of what the advanced haptic feedback can do, where people are running sound files through the controller and the advanced haptic feedback will start to react to different parts of the music so that it basically vibrates and will play it if you put on like a cardboard box, as we've seen before. But those adaptive triggers could be really interesting if people kind of play around with them in Windows or in Linux. And I think we'll eventually get there. It's just going to take a bit of time, and then we can see what these adaptive triggers can really do. Also, we had talked previously about Capcom's cyber attack that was really severe, a full ransom, all of this. They said no, everything then started to get leaked online, but we had another cyber attack that just happened, this around Koei Tecmo. They actually put a press release out on the 29th detailing this a bit, and we can see here some things that were confirmed to be leaked so far include account names, account passwords, that's in an encrypted state though, and mail addresses. This appears to be around 65,000 accounts of Koei Tecmo Europe's forum having leaked out. And if you go to, for example, KoeiTecmoAmerica.com, says due to the possibility of an external cyber attack on this website, it is temporarily closed as we investigate the issue. And we'll find out, I'm sure, more information since they have made this public through a press release. They will continue to update as they do this investigation. But just so far, just this initial glance, does not appear to be as bad at all as what Capcom went through. And it sounds like, at least so far, no credit card information or like serious personal information was leaked out and then stolen here. So that's at least good. It's a shame to see anything like this happen, obviously, but could have been much, much worse for Koei Tecmo, and it appears that they acted very, very quickly, even shutting down access to the website so people couldn't sign up and then maybe have that information taken by this cyber attack. So we'll find out more as we go along and they do their investigation. Oh, and I've been pretty excited for Psychonauts 2. Psychonauts 1 is awesome and everyone should be checking that out. I remember playing it way back in the day on GameTap on PC. So yeah, it's been a while, and then I remember playing it a bit on the original Xbox. But Psychonauts 2, was hoping it was coming out in 2020. However, it appears with the pandemic and all of that, got pushed to 2021 after we had the press release from Xbox Wire that came out around the time of that July event that Microsoft held. And now we have a new interview with IGN and Tim Schafer talking about this current state of the game. They say we mostly have everything now in the game, and we're mostly moving on to polishing stuff that's in the game already. 2020 definitely did not help speed up development. Yeah, it seemed like a lot of things that were going to be coming out this year did end up getting pushed several months and fell into 2021, which after seeing Cyberpunk, yeah, it's fine. Go ahead and delay the game. I'd rather it come out working well rather than just a buggy mess and all of this. Great example, like I said, going forward will always be Cyberpunk that we look back on when a game gets delayed. But the other interesting thing here is Double Fine will have something else to do after Psychonauts 2 comes out. I'm going to say hopefully in the first half of 2021. I just want to play the game, but they talked about how they would prefer to do a new IP rather than an IP that Microsoft already owns. So it could be interesting to see what Double Fine could come up with, especially since Microsoft is very much on board with giving a lot of creative freedom to their different studios. So after Psychonauts 2 comes out, we'll see what Double Fine can do with their own brand new IP, it looks like. And guys, that's some of the quick news out of the way. Let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Nintendo posting some very weird listings on their website, because apparently yesterday we were supposed to have a couple of Wii U games come out, specifically Banjo-Kazooie and Blast Corps. These are two games off of Rare Replay, which was the first thing that a lot of people pointed out, but why would Banjo-Kazooie and Blast Corps, two games from Microsoft basically under Rare, why would that show up on the Wii U? Why would that show up with Nintendo right now, December 30th, 2020? It doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, you can see even over here, Gamatsu spotted it, saying according to Nintendo's Japan release schedule, Banjo-Kazooie and Blast Corps are launching on the Wii U Virtual Console today in Japan. Links lead to 404s. And you can see a couple of screen grabs here. Nintendo Life had Banjo-Kazooie's Great Adventure, Blastozer, and it does say Microsoft Japan's. They had a lot of the information filled out here. It wasn't just like an accidental listing and it has like just nothing there for publisher. And I don't even know how that would be an accidental listing unless it was made like forever ago, like before the Wii U came out and it was scheduled for some reason, like almost the last day of 2020. It's a very strange thing to see there, but Nintendo did actually respond to this. Banjo-Kazooie and Blast Corps were listed as Wii U titles to be released on December 30th, but will not be released. We apologize for the error. So basically they shut it down real quick. I'm sure some intern somewhere is getting yelled at or something, who knows there, but like, it's a very odd accident, because that means that someone would have gone through and filled all of this out and put it up as December 30th, like I said, almost purposeful. Then it does make me wonder if some dates got flipped around, and as a lot of people are thinking, does that mean that Banjo-Kazooie and Blast Corps could be released on the Switch? Maybe they've messed up with the platform it's supposed to come out on, because like Nintendo's not releasing any more Wii U stuff, so that's off already. But what if Banjo-Kazooie and Blast Corps were supposed to be going to the Switch and all this was just a messed up listing? Or what if we go a little further than that? What if the Switch is going to get its own Rare Replay? That is the other thing a lot of people are kind of talking about here. I don't think it would get the exact same one that Microsoft has on the Xbox One. They'd probably cut some games out, maybe even, I don't know, put a game or two in, you never know there, but I could see them getting their own version of Rare Replay with how Microsoft has been, or realistically, if Microsoft was smart, they just break up the games and release them individually. Like I think Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie releasing on the Switch on their own, just as they did with the 360. Like if they just took the 360 version of it and moved it over, which is still a very good version to play on the Xbox One, probably the best version you can play right now, that would do really, really well on the Switch. Remember, when Banjo-Kazooie came to Smash, it trended in Japan alongside of the Xbox One. That's how a lot of people found out about it, because Sakurai said, hey, go check out the Xbox. That's where you can play Banjo-Kazooie. But what if it released on the Switch? Remember, Minecraft on the Switch is Microsoft's first 1 million unit seller for software. That's right. It took them releasing it on a Nintendo platform, not on any other platform they've done. The original Xbox, the 360, the Xbox One, nothing. They had to release it on a Nintendo platform to get to their first 1 million unit seller. How do you think Banjo-Kazooie or Banjo-Tooie would do? Probably better than what it did on the Xbox One. Although I will say the strange one there is Blast Corps. Now the other side of this could be, Nintendo 64 games. I mean, that's what we've talked about. Nintendo 64 games could be going to that Nintendo Online service. Nintendo could have struck a deal with Microsoft and said, hey, we want Banjo-Kazooie in the collection that we're putting together. Let's do that. And the data ends up on Nintendo's website with Microsoft Japan as the publisher. Interesting stuff to think about that. I do still believe that Nintendo's going to do bare minimum for next system on the online service. And it's going to be like monochrome Game Boy. It's not even going to be like color or advanced, none of that. It's going to be like the basic Game Boy that they put on the Nintendo Online service to kind of break up each individual generation of the Game Boy itself. But let me know, Banjo-Kazooie, Banjo-Tooie, Blast Corps, other N64 games, a bunch of Rare games. Would you like to see all of that released on the Switch? Because I would. I think it'd be great to see Banjo-Kazooie come home to Nintendo and release on the Switch. And hey, maybe Microsoft, if they start doing that again with some of these older Nintendo games, could see another surge and find another 1 million unit seller somewhere out there. Next up, let's talk about Microsoft and their own adaptive triggers for the Xbox controller. This was a really cool feature that Sony talked about leading up to the PlayStation 5 release, and after trying it myself on the DualSense controller, yes, it is a big deal for the PlayStation. I hope more and more developers use it going forward, but the one issue I had is Microsoft really did not advance their controller that much. And I feel like if they had advanced haptic feedback and they had their own adaptive triggers, you would have developers really push more and more towards using both of those features. But interestingly enough, it looks like Microsoft had actually been working on adaptive triggers through a patent that was spotted, and it looks like this dates back to 2017. You can see some of it here, and you can see the filing date, June 1st, 2017, but at the top, date of patent, December 1st, 2020, which does look like Microsoft is at least keeping this patent like updated as they go along. Some of the images here, by the way, heavily remind me of the inside of that DualSense adaptive trigger controller where they have kind of the gears and they have resistance that's moved around with the motor. All of that is there. And I do wonder if Microsoft had this idea and they kind of stopped a little bit in development and said, well, hold on, cost. Like we're building a system that's kind of pricey with this Xbox Series X and even the Series S, which they wanted to keep the price down on that, since they're trying to hit a $300 amount and they're losing more money, it seems, on the Series S than they are on the Series X. The controller does come into play. It gets packaged with the system. So you start adding a ton of things to that controller, the price continues to go up. But they do still have the ability to add this in as they go through the generation, considering they can just introduce more and more controllers that have newer features. They did this with the Xbox One controller. Midway through, they had like Bluetooth support and all of this, which didn't technically change the overall functionality of the controller in games. But with what we've seen with the adaptive triggers on the PlayStation 5, you can just turn that off completely and they're just like regular triggers then. So Microsoft could be thinking, oh, well, we can just add that in, and if developers want to create for it, they can do so. And there's also the idea of a new Xbox Series X or just Series Elite controller showing up, the V3, that could add in features like this and maybe their own advanced haptic feedback. Although then you would be kind of taking all of that cool technology and putting it behind like this $200 paywall basically. And at that point, I don't think developers will really do much with it. So it'd be better off putting it into a controller that's more reasonably priced. But let me know what you guys think about this. Would you like to see Microsoft lean into the adaptive triggers on the Xbox controller? Because I would love to see that. I really like the idea of what Sony has done with the DualSense and those triggers, and I would like to see more and more developers attempt to use them and take advantage of it. Next up, let's talk about Capcom's plug-and-play system. They announced this a little while ago. It was actually through a leak that it really got out there. They announced a little while ago, and now we have more details on it and even the possibility of it making its way to the US and other regions. Well, here it is. This is the Capcom Retro Station. From what I could tell, it converts to about $210 in the United States, and it's gonna go up for sale on Amazon Japan, so I guess you can order it, and it has games built in, but I mean, obviously you can see this big screen right there in front of you too, and they have several images of it with the big Capcom logo directly on the back. A couple of games here. They have 10 of the Capcom classic retro games built in, as they say, with some from Mega Man, like Mega Man the Power Battle, Mega Man the Power Fighters 2, Mega Man Soccer, Mega Man X, and others. Then they also have Street Fighter Collection, which includes Street Fighter 2, Super Street Fighter 2, Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, and they go over some of the features, which includes a 4:3 LCD display at 1024 by 768 resolution, as well as TV out and even controller inputs. Now, it is available currently just in Japan. We can see Amazon and then Retro Station official shop as the vendors, and they do say sales in other regions coming soon, with little email sign up down below where you can get updates for when it's going on sale in other regions. And I get why people buy these things. It's mostly for the collectors, right? The collector's value kind of thing, where you'll buy it, like, oh, it's pretty cool. Then you put it up on the shelf and move along. And that does happen with basically, I would say, most of these plug and play systems. However, $210 for that probably could have been cut down to like less than half of that if it was just a box. And Capcom probably would have been better off with that because most people are going to get it. And I just don't think the screen that they're describing here is going to cut it for most people. And they'll just plug it into their TV anyway, right? Or if you have friends over, you're probably not going to huddle around this little screen. You're going to plug it into a TV and use a couple of arcade sticks or controllers that you can buy for it. They even have little like Bluetooth adapters that you plug into the side so you can have wireless connection. I feel like Capcom overthought this whole thing just a little bit. A box that we've seen from like Sega with their Genesis Mini or even the TurboGrafx Mini, probably more preferred here, but like I said, a lot of people were excited for the different Mega Man fighting games on there, and then Street Fighter. It just seems like it was more than had to be done here to sell this thing. In our last bit of news, let's talk about PlayStation Plus in January. Now, these are games you're gonna wanna go ahead and at least claim in January so that you have them as part of your purchases or just your collection overall on the PlayStation Store. These will go up on January 5th, and we can take a look at the card that Sony put out here. Maneater on the PlayStation 5. From what I can tell, as they describe here, it's PlayStation 5 console only. So they are starting to do this where they're like dividing it up. For PS5 owners, will get basically an extra game. PS4 owners will have Shadow of the Tomb Raider, Greedfall. Those will also work through backwards compatibility, I believe, on the PS5. I liked Maneater when I played it on the Xbox One X. It's kind of like its own genre of game. It's a shark action-adventure RPG. It got a little repetitive as I went through it towards the end because you do start doing basically the same thing kind of over and over again, but it was really fun to build your shark up as your shark gets larger and grows bigger. You get newer abilities, you'll get like kind of this armor and stuff and like steel jaws and all that. It's pretty cool. And then you do have Shadow of the Tomb Raider. I liked Rise of the Tomb Raider more, but still a pretty good game there. And then Greedfall, a game I have not played yet, but you know what? I might as well check it out here. And I'll actually go back and check out Maneater again as well, as I believe it got a next generation patch, and I mostly just checked it out through Xbox Series X backwards compatibility when I first got the Series X. I didn't check it out for too long, just see how it ran and all of this, but not a bad month for January. Certainly one to check out, and I would definitely recommend at least trying Maneater to see what you think. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Raphael saying, why Atari when there is KF console? So we talked about the Atari VCS being marked up on eBay. If the KF console actually releases, it'll sell for more, but if it doesn't actually release and it's used as a prize in some sort of contest in their stores, and they do like 10, maybe 100 at the most, and they give them away as prizes, those are going to be massive on eBay if someone decides to list it. I mean, we're talking, if it costs them a couple $1,000s to make it, which is what I think it'll cost KFC to do that, and we're talking like $10,000, $20,000 maybe for these things. Seriously, with the bids skyrocketing, I'm sure several hundred bids even, I could see it being a big deal with how many memes and all the talk online over the last few weeks. So we've talked about the secondary market for the PS5 and the Xbox Series X and even the Atari VCS. You know what? It's gonna be really funny when the KF console shows up and is higher priced than all of them. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Whether it is these weird listings on Nintendo's site, do you think there's something to it? Do you think Banjo Kazooie and Blast Corps is part of a bigger release like a Rare Replay, or maybe Nintendo 64 games starting to finally show up on the Nintendo Switch? Or what about Microsoft's patent for adaptive triggers in the Xbox controller? Would you like to see them do a mid-gen refresh of their own Xbox controller? And then what about Capcom's Retro Station? Are you on board with what they have here, or would you prefer for them to just make a little box like the Super Nintendo Classic or Nintendo Classic, but it be all like Capcom games? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.